fact that he looked at Kamala Harris and went, what do you mean she's black? Thought she was Indian or something. There. She's not black. Genetic proximity to blackness? Yes. Blackness? No. Because blackness doesn't require you to justify your genes. It's something you experience when a person meets you immediately. So when the very inventors of the concept cannot see it within you, you know what Trump is saying? Trump is saying, I would never treat you like a nigger. Why does this matter? Why would I be trying to strip her of her blackness, so to speak? It matters because when people name racially ambiguous women such as Kamala Harris and label them as being black, the world celebrates progress that is yet to be made. Yeah, let's talk about that. Racial ambiguity, privilege. It is big in the black community. It's a privilege to not look black when there's black in your blood because the world treats you differently. I don't think that woman is for the culture. I think she's exploiting her genetic proximity to the culture. Don't allow people to use their race to manipulate you into thinking that they give about you.
You will subscribe to Delululand.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Uhari and this is Delululand, where I talk about people, things, entities that are delusional or just interesting in general. Okay, today I'm going to be talking about why I don't think that Kamala Harris is black. I'm speaking very fast because it's not something that I really need to spend a lot of time on. This is very simple. Let's get into it. Kamala Harris is black, isn't black. Let's explain the two arguments. People who say she is black exist on the idea that genetic proximity to blackness equals blackness. And a good example of this was the one-drop rule, which basically dictates that anybody who has close genetic proximity to blackness is black. And so under that definition of black, then yes, you could call Kamala Harris black. Now, let's go on to the camp of why someone might say she isn't black. That's because aside from genetic blackness, there is experiential blackness. What is experiential blackness? Experiential blackness is something that frames the entire context of a black person's life. It dictates what you have access to in the world. It dictates how you are treated. It dictates your rank. It dictates the framework and the context of your life. What it is you're going to have to fight for, what it is you're going to have to overcome. When you start with experiential blackness, you have to accept the idea that the world thinks you're lesser than because of the color of your skin and the texture of your hair and your ancestry. Because of that, people feel like they know you before you even walk into a room, because to them, black is an archetype, not some sort of genetic question. Black is something that you can see, that is not even questioned. One of the interesting things about blackness is that it is a white invention. So-called black people, let's just call them Africans. So-called black people who are Africans in their origin, back when the first encounter happened between the species that identified itself by race and color and this other branch of humanity whose evolutionary timeline focused on a different part of existence, and because of that didn't have the fear of death because their evolution spanned beyond just the body. So we did not identify as black, and eventually, hopefully, every black person comes to the point where their identity is separate from the one that they were chained to. So over the centuries, black people everywhere, not just Africans, but the African diaspora, black people everywhere face the same problem: racism because of our skin, our heritage, and very importantly, again, our hair texture. If I were to travel to, say, the United States, somebody sees me, they would think I'm an African American, when really I'm not American. I'm just black. But that's how ubiquitous the Black experience is it doesn't have nuance in it. When you're Black, you're Black. The particulars of where you come from and your genealogy, they aren't what Blackness is about. Blackness is about humanity's currently most unevolved section of Homo sapiens. That's what we live with. That's the stereotype, is constantly having to prove yourself to be equal to the people who misidentified us and couldn't understand us and didn't leave the room to get to know each other, never adapting. Instead, it was the position of the colonized to have to find ways to ingratiate ourselves within white culture, to erase as much of our Blackness as possible. The dream is walking into a room and not having your humanity questioned at all. The little bit of joy that comes in within me as a Black person, and I am sure this is a shared experience, is the sense of relief you feel when you encounter a white person who isn't racist. Something like the first couple of words, how they greet you, that's when you pick it up. So when you realize this person isn't going to subject me to their stereotype of what I am and then treat me with regards to that, they instead are going to pay attention to my personhood and who I am beyond the limitations of what they were programmed to believe as children. So, experiential Blackness is why a large part of the Black community, both American and diasporic like myself, that's why it irks us. And in particular for this video, I'll speak for myself. The reason Kamala Harris saying that she's Black feels bad and fills me with anger and rage is because she isn't experientially Black. You want to know why? White people invented Blackness. So when a white person such as Trump, who can arguably be called a racist, who perhaps even if he wasn't a racist, say for the sake of this particular point, Trump isn't a racist. The fact that he looked at Kamala Harris and went, "What do you mean she's Black? Thought she was Indian or something." There. She's not Black. Genetic proximity to Blackness? Yes. Blackness? No. Because Blackness doesn't require you to justify your genes. It's something you experience when a person meets you immediately. So when the very inventors of the concept cannot see it within you, you know what Trump is saying? Trump is saying, "I would never treat you like a nigger. I didn't even know you were a nigger. What the fuck you talking about? You're Black. That's not a Black woman. That's not what a Black woman looks like." And then people bully him for having fucking eyes. As a South African, we had apartheid, and it was very bad. And the biggest thing was racial segregation. So for us, race was for the government, was very particular. You had your niggers, your Black people, completely subject to the Black experience. Then you had your coloreds, and these were people who had lighter skin tones, and these people had a set amount of privileges that Black people didn't have. And then next to or above them were the Indians, because if you do not know, South Africa has the largest population of Indian people outside of India itself. So if some sort of asteroid were to hit and India disappeared, we'd kind of be India. But Indian people then are also classed differently, and then you get white people. One of the grievances that you have as a black person that you eventually swallow, because you have to live with a lot of contradictions, cognitive dissonance, oxymorons. You just have to accept that the way people treat you lacks logic. Because I know of Indian people who are darker than my skin color, but they are called brown and I am black. What can you differentiate there? It's hair texture. It sounds so fucking stupid. But hair texture matters. Do you want to know how much it matters? One of the world's most famous racists, Gandhi, argued that Indian people under the apartheid times should be treated better than black people and not be treated like black people because their hair was silky like that of white people. I've heard people say, yeah, but Gandhi was fighting for his people. There's a way to fight for your people and also fight for other people, or even not fight, but just not diminish the humanity. Saying that we have straight hair unlike them, so treat us better, is saying we're better than them. Do you see? You always look for this camaraderie, but very few times do you find it. Where people are oppressing, you're like, let's get together. And you realize that they get off on being white relative to you. So they may not be white, but at least they're not fucking niggers. And it's true. And that's why Kamala Harris is not a nigger. Anybody who isn't aware of who she is, who looks at her, wouldn't think that she's a black person. Why does this matter? Why would I be trying to strip her of her blackness, so to speak? It matters because when people name racially ambiguous women such as Kamala Harris and label them as being black, the world celebrates progress that is yet to be made. It's not an accident that Kamala Harris is currently one of the most powerful women in the world. She experienced privileges that a truly black person wouldn't get. She's inside of a room that a black person, a black woman, currently in the state of the world is yet to be able to reach. So when she says she's black and she wins and people celebrate, you're not celebrating blackness, you're celebrating racial ambiguity. You're celebrating a version of black that you can stomach because it is far enough removed from the black that you don't even question. When she says she's black, she's claiming our pain that she did not experience. That's why it matters. The one drop rule matters because it gives people the opportunity to deny other parts of their heritage. And that's wrong. It's great that her mother is Indian. It's great that other racially ambiguous people are biracial. It's not great that the world says they can't celebrate that part of them. It's important. It's important for people who have black parents or parents who are close to being black. They don't get to be like, hey, here's my Scottish heritage. Hey, here's my Italian heritage. No, you're black. That's bullshit. If you're racially ambiguous, you need to be able to claim the other part of your identity. Do you want to know what one of the most painful memories black women share? It's a memory of us as children in a salon chair, having drain cleaner chemicals put on our hair so it could straighten out our 4C curl pattern. Our mothers would put us in these chairs. And when you're too shy to say it, you cry. Because it's burning your skull. But you sit through it anyway because that's how you're supposed to be. If I want to give you an advantage in this world, I have to erase as much of your blackness as possible. Because it is easier to change yourself than it is to change the world. When the world starts to celebrate change that is yet to happen, how are we to move forward? To say with her full chest, I am a black woman, is to say, I have had the same experience as Lupita. The same restrictions, the same pains. No, you haven't. You really, really haven't. You have not experienced the full extent of the black experience because you lived the racially ambiguous experience. I'm sorry, and I know it's hard to not be white enough or not black enough or whatever your other half is. I know it's hard to have people in the black community try to deny your blackness, but that's because we're defending the experience and the pain. That's what we're saying you don't get. I get that you have genetic proximity to blackness. I get that it's part of your genealogy. But you must understand that to a certain extent, it's not a part of your experience. Women like Kamala Harris have the privilege to deny their blackness in order to get into rooms where truly black people could not get in. And I'm going to give you an example. Meghan Markle. Until she went all the way into the British palace where they invented the one-drop rule and they took a look at her and they were like, she's a little... What are her parents? The majority of the world has absolutely no idea that she wasn't a white woman. She was a racially ambiguous woman who got to experience the privileges of a white woman until such a time that she encountered experiential racism from the most racist people possible.
Aye, 30 million pounds. Yeah. Prince Eric, stayed over at Tyler Perry's, press cold like Brendan Jerry's. I'm allergic to dairy.
Harry and Meghan, Ronald Reagan, interracial dating, Queen said not today, Satan.
Then it was like one-drop rule, we don't even want it in our kids. And then she was black. Why? Because at that point being black was beneficial. That's why it pisses us off when people like Kamala Harris say that they're black. We don't have the benefit of having racists question whether or not we're black. That itself is literally all I had to say for this. But it's deeper than that. When I was growing up, I thought that African American black women had long, straight, wavy hair. And it wasn't until I grew up that I learned all these women were wearing wigs and hardcore straightening their hair. And you want to know why you do it? To ingratiate yourself, to get a little less black each time. Maybe if I lighten my skin, I'm a little less black. I straighten my hair, I'm a little less black. Why? It's not truly because I hate my skin or my hair. I hate the limitations that I have to live with. It's hard. You'll make friends with white people, and then you'll move into another room with different white people, and you have to start all over again. These people are just going to dismiss you. They're never going to give you the opportunity to prove yourself. And the fact that we feel the need in and that of itself shows the psychological warfare that has for centuries been enacted on those of African descent, those with the 4C hair. Not only is it dangerous to benefit from the overcoming of an experience you didn't have to live. It is also detrimental to little black girls who are fed racially ambiguous women and are told this is black, this is black, this is black. When am I going to see myself if the only type of black that gets in and is popular is this? We've made a lot of strides as society. But how many of those are people patting themselves on the back for minimal progress? If you look at black women in the 60s, 70s, 80s in the music industry, particularly in the 60s, they had this kind of wig that they would wear. You had to do something to yourself before you step outside and encounter white people. There's all sorts of memories and experiences that are associated with black that Kamala Harris can now claim to experience when she didn't. Because the truth is, a lot of these racially ambiguous women have racial ambiguity privilege. There. Yeah, let's talk about that. Racial ambiguity privilege. It is big in the black community. A lot of truly black by experience women aren't getting the opportunities. And one of the saddest examples of this, ever so often this goes viral. Pray to God it goes viral again. In 2016, Jewish team decided that it was within their right to make a movie about Nina Simone. But see, they encountered a problem. They wanted the movie to be funded, but nobody would fund it with a black woman. So what did they do? They took somebody with genetic proximity, far, far removed, a lady called Zoe Saldana. She's not black, but because racial ambiguity privilege, because those people have been called black to take jobs that could have gone to actual black people, but they don't want actual black people. This white and Jewish team hired non-black woman who lives her life not as a black woman. And you know what fucking happened? She wore blackface and got a black prosthetic nose. Fuck! I will never forgive that shit. Ever. Do you understand how difficult Nina Simone's life was? Do you understand how much pain she had to encounter because of the shape of her nose, the texture of her hair, and the color of her skin? And then this bitch who decides that she can be blue and green decides that black is just another thing that she can do. So she puts on makeup again. And this is in the 2010s.
Black is the color of my true love's hair. You know who I am?
Yeah, my mother used to listen to you.
Reality is that what keeps me focused is and what kept me from, I guess, getting stressed or being hurt by the comments and is that I'm doing it for my sisters, I'm doing it for my brothers, and I don't care who tells me that I am not this and I am not that. I know who I am, and I know what Nina Simone means to me, so that is my truth and that set me free. You know, and I can only rely on that and maintain as much humility as possible so that when I have to face the world and we have to then give the movie to the world to see and share it with them, that if it comes back in any other way, if it comes back in a negative fashion or positive, I'm going to keep my chin up because that's who I am and that's who I'll be. And Nina was like that too. So I did all out of love for Nina, out of love for my people and who I am and my pride of being a black woman and a Latina woman, American woman, and that's my truth.
This isn't some sort of minstrel show for way back when. This is an opportunity of a lifetime to play the talent of a lifetime. A woman who was so passionate about civil rights and fighting for black rights, for black women who looked like her. And then that bitch got the job. How many white people were involved in facilitating this process? At no point was anybody like, this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this. Instead, this woman said, well, we wanted to tell the story, but we needed to finance it and we needed a big name.
All of the producers for the movie just so happened to be white. Yes, the creators and the producers of the movie were all white. Except there was only one black man. And this is him. This is the one black man who produced this movie. This is him.
So you guys can kind of see how that was a little bit controversial. Zoe Saldana thought it was a good idea to put on a prosthetic nose because Nina Simone was very looked down upon because of her wide Afrocentric nose. Instead of the casting directors casting a dark-skinned black woman who looks like Nina Simone, they instead wanted to hire the biggest star they knew, who was Zoe Saldana at the time. So Zoe Saldana accepted the role of Nina Simone, and instead of just playing herself and looking like how she regularly looks, they decided to put a prosthetic nose on her, and they also decided to enhance her hair, making it resemble a Ford-type texture, and they also darkened her skin.
If you've studied the life of Nina Simone, you'd know just how hard her life is. Because no one in their right mind would ever look at her and say, is she black? Celebrating black women in Hollywood. We've gotten so far. We're in the 2010s. We'll hire black people to play slaves. Hell, give them Oscars. But if we want to make a movie about a woman whose music we appreciated, because music you can listen to without constantly watching her black face. What if we just took Zoe Saldana and then that bitch saw nothing wrong, and there we go. That's the problem with racial ambiguity privilege. Racially ambiguous people live a life of privilege that non-racially ambiguous black people don't have. That's why Kamala Harris isn't black. That's why you shouldn't call her black. You'll act like you're celebrating the first black female president, and you're not. You'll be celebrating the first female president, second racially ambiguous president. Actually, no. See, it works the other way as well. Like Obama, he has genetic proximity to whiteness, but you live the black experience. Because what? This beautiful hair. He's more black. Look at amazing guy with the movies, Jordan Peele. Hot black, hot white, but looks black, so lives the black life. J. Cole, biracial, looks black, lives the black life. Meghan Markle, doesn't look black, doesn't live the black life. Kamala Harris, doesn't look black, doesn't live the black life. Celebrate your heritage, all parts of it. Don't demarcate yourself to blackness, because in this particular instance, blackness is beneficial. Let me tell you something my boyfriend told me years ago when we were discussing the state of South Africa and just how corrupt our government is and how many promises they made and they didn't keep. And he said, I think some of the people who were fighting for our freedom weren't fighting for our freedom, they were fighting for power. And if you've ever looked at the state of the African continent, that's what happened. They fought for power, and then the people who gave them power pay them to maintain the status quo. It's not because black people, Africans are inept. It's because democracy in Africa is just colonization in blackface. Don't allow people to use their race to manipulate you into thinking that they give a fuck about you. Because that's happened to a lot of us South Africans. Black people have used that kinship to exploit it. And then when they get that power, they don't give a shit about other black people. Because there was never real camaraderie. It's the same with the white people who get into power. They don't give a shit about white people. They just use that identity to manipulate and control a bunch of people. The latest Barbie movie was amazing. One of the greatest things was Issa Rae. That's a black woman. Everything she accomplished as a black woman. Because that's a black woman. That's black victory. It's not racial ambiguity victory. It matters. If you just say you're black, you're not acknowledging your privileges that you had. And you did have privileges. I don't think that there's a greater privilege in the world for a person with genetic proximity to blackness than looking like your other genetic contribution. Looking more non-black than black. You get to get so far in life. So far. Look at Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey was forced, even her mom kind of inculcated her to not talk about the fact that her father was black. And all her life, she had to suppress that until she was able to come out with it. So it might sound horrific to take away her blackness and say she's not black. But when I say she's not black, I say it because Mariah Carey is a goddamn superstar. And not a lot of women who are black get there, particularly at the time when that happened. It's a privilege to not look black when there's black in your blood. Because the world treats you differently. To such a point that what was once the most powerful man in the world, and what could be again the most powerful man in the world, looks at you and says, that's not a black person. That's it. When he says that's not a black person, he's saying, I would never treat you like a nigger. I wouldn't treat you like that. I'm so shocked. Perhaps had I known. To end this off, I want to say to all my racially ambiguous brothers and sisters who have blackness within their genes, I hope that the world starts to accept you celebrating the other half of your heritage. Because it is important to know where we come from and who our ancestors are and what they have experienced and how that relates to the lives we live. So it's not fair for somebody who has whiteness within themselves not to be able to even just be proud of both sides of their heritage. It's painful both ways, to the experiential black and the genetic proximity to black, the one drop rule black. Both have their pains, but societally speaking, this one is suppressed way more than this one. So when you say you're this, when you haven't lived the experience of this, when so many doors have opened for you, like I said, the biggest problem here is celebrating victories that have not come. We did it! We got a black woman, now we're done. But did you get it? Or did you get something that doesn't make you feel as uncomfortable? This is where I'm coming from. I don't have the authority on blackness, but I hope that people understand the discord. It's between genetic proximity to blackness and the black experience. This is what we are defending, that you didn't have to overcome this. And so the world will celebrate you like you overcame all of this. But you didn't, because they didn't subject you to all of this. So they get to take credit that they didn't make. Do you see how this goes bigger? I don't think that woman is for the culture. I think she's exploiting her genetic proximity to the culture. That's what I think is happening. Now she's using black privilege, but it's really just racial ambiguity privilege, because you can kind of claim a life that you didn't live. Meghan Markle wasn't black until she stepped into the palace. Zoe Saldana wasn't black until it was beneficial to put on blackface and a prosthetic nose. The prosthetic nose is what hurts. Because they're doing this as if black people don't exist. Zoe Saldana came out apologizing. It was a bad apology. She apologized for taking black men from black women. Y'all better stop acting like men can be taken. The only way men can be taken is the way in which they were taken from Africa to America. Other than that, if there's no slavery involved, a man goes where he wants to go. Ain't nobody want colorist niggas. Ain't nobody want that. Keep them. Keep them. And your privilege to be green or blue or black. Fuck Zoe Saldana. Good. Bye. Yeah. Goodbye. If you don't subscribe, you will be smacked down by the Lord.
What does that taste like? Monetization.